It's time for some straight talk. The big wireless companies charge a boatload for their superior network coverage. But guess what? Straight Talk uses the same cell towers, but you pay half the cost. Who knew? Well, now you do. And I do. So let's do something. It's time to switch to Straight Talk. Unlimited plans start at just $45 a month on America's largest, most dependable networks. Straight Talk Wireless. Only at Walmart.
Savings may vary. Please refer always to the latest terms and conditions of service at straighttalk.com.
This is the Dan Lebatard Show with the Stugotz podcast.
Texter writes in, why aren't you guys bringing up the Michael Irvin sexual assault investigation? That guy wanted to get in real quick and make sure that we knew that we have spent 1 hour not talking on local radio about an accusation that may or may not be true. Because right now it's he said, she said. What do you imagine that mindset is, Stugotz? Because we get a lot of that.
Right.
Like, what do you want me to say about a sexual assault allegation other than an allegation isn't an arrest isn't a conviction? I remember I learned all of this through Michael Irvin. Michael Irvin taught me this in sports journalism. No joke. I remember ESPN broke into programming with an accusation against him and Eric Williams. And he was coming out of, I believe, a strip club. And he was yelling at the cameras, make sure you report with the same intensity.
Right.
That this isn't true. That the way that you guys are reporting that it's been an allegation filed against me. I don't know what's true there. And it's okay to wait without having an opinion. Police are investigating it.
Right. I think the mindset is we're in Miami. He's a Miami legend. It's something that we should at least acknowledge, discuss, talk about.
But how?
Mention.
How? Besides
at least
what,
mention it.
Okay,
I guess.
okay. But beside what I just said, what can you say?
Nothing.
Look, you can't jump to any conclusions. And I'm telling you, I used to jump to conclusions. I'm not kidding you when I tell you that Michael Irvin taught me the unfairness of that 20 years ago.
Right.
Coming out of a strip club. Journalism lessons with Michael Irvin. Because I thought it was unfair that ESPN had broken into programming, and they didn't do it because of an allegation. They did it because of the allegation against that team. Which brings us now to the Patriots. Because Stugotz is mad at the Patriots for something that is right now on ESPN.com.
Well, it's tough to be mad at them for what appears to be a long-term policy of theirs, which is to not sign anyone who has domestic violence in their past. It's more confusing to me that that's where they've drawn the line, because they are months removed from signing a guy who fell asleep at the wheel of his car at a traffic light because he was too hammered to drive or keep his eyes open. And they certainly knew, if you read about some of the stuff that Aaron Hernandez did while he was at the University of Florida, he was an insane person. And I'm not saying they knew he was going to go on to murder people. Of course, they didn't know that. They wouldn't have drafted him if they did. But he did some pretty bad things at the University of Florida, and they decided to draft him.
Well, tell people why you're upset, though, because it's not just that they have a policy about domestic abuse that is zero tolerance. It is in the news now today because
they have said they are not interested in signing Oklahoma running back Joe Mixon. He's not on their radar. They're not going to sign him. And owner Bob Kraft says that the Patriots have had a long-standing, they have a zero tolerance policy when it comes to having guys with domestic violence issues in their past on their team. I just find it a strange place. Why are you drawing the line? Like, why is there a line being drawn? Okay. And why are we drawing it there? And why I understand it, how come it's not, why don't you have a policy about a guy who falls asleep drunk at the wheel of his car at a traffic light? Well, how come you don't have a policy on a guy who did awful things in college like Aaron Hernandez did at the University of Florida?
Okay, a couple of things here. Wouldn't you like it if every team in the league had this exact policy? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Zero tolerance, because then Joe Mixon wouldn't be working for anybody.
Correct.
Joe Mixon would not be allowed to work at all if you indeed like the zero tolerance on domestic abuse. That's a dangerous one for a couple of different reasons, one of which is an accusation is not a conviction. Now, in Mixon's case, there's video, and that video is damning.
Sure.
And that video cost him a year that wasn't really a year at Oklahoma, but he is said to be. I saw that Kuiper was saying he's the best running back in the draft, which surprised me. I thought that Cook and Leonard Fournette would be the best running backs in the draft, but Kuiper's saying, nope, Mixon is the best running back in the draft. So let's attack this question from this angle.
Okay.
You would agree that that is a good policy to have, right?
Of course.
A zero-tolerance policy on domestic abuse. The Patriots haven't had any issues with anybody. Do you know of anybody with the Patriots since Bob Kraft has been in charge? Have they had one issue where a guy gets in trouble with... That doesn't seem to be a Patriot issue at all. They seem to emphasize it. If everyone was handling this the way that the Patriots were, it'd actually be better than the way the league is handling it, Stugotz, because the league has not been successful at trying to handle this moral conundrum. The league has failed at trying to handle the idea of dispensing morality on crime. That's been a failure that almost cost Roger Goodell his job and gets Roger Goodell considered one of the worst commissioners in the history of sports because of how he's failed trying to manage this situation. But the Patriots seem to have managed it well. They seem to have handled it very well, because I can't remember off the top of my head a single guy that's been a Patriot who's had this land on his doorstep, this kind of accusation even. Never mind a conviction or an arrest or an incident with the police, even an accusation. When have you heard Patriot in news for domestic abuse? So if indeed they do have a zero-tolerance policy on this, I think we can all agree that's probably a good policy to have.
It is. I'm just wondering why there's not policies on other issues. That's all.
Well, but then you have trouble filling out your huddle, because then you get into one of these situations. If you start making moral stances on everyone,
right,
Stugotz, then you're going to lose to the guy who doesn't make those moral stances. You're going to lose to the team that is willing to take a bunch of guys in that sport where the violence sometimes spills over the sidelines and ends up in handcuffs.
I'm reading an interview with Jonathan Kraft where he says there's no gray area when it comes to domestic abuse, and it goes even dating back to the days of Christian Peter. So I Googled who Christian Peter was. And Christian Peter was drafted.
He's got a ton of that.
He was drafted in the
Nebraska.
fifth round.
Yeah,
and I think he got his 8th arrest in a really short time frame. And upon learning of the more recent arrests, the Patriots relinquished his draft rights a week after taking him.
So there and then they created that policy. That's an interesting one. Do you realize the problem we'd have on our hands if every NFL team did that and colluded to keep Joe Mixon out of the league? Do you realize the problem with the union and everyone else, that there would be legal ramifications to every team having this same policy the Patriots have that kept Joe Mixon out of football forever? It would actually be something, because football is largely a monopoly. I think that it would end up being a problem that would possibly harm their NFL offices and their tax-exempt status. And so it would be an antitrust problem if all of the teams in the league had a policy that we'd all agree with, because I think all of us would agree that zero tolerance on domestic abuse is a fine moral stand.
Yeah, I have no issue with it. There are a bunch of people on text and Twitter saying, well, what you guys are doing here is saying that Joe Mixon doesn't deserve a second chance, but guys like Michael, and what the Patriots are really saying is Michael Floyd, he deserves a second chance. But Joe Mixon, nope. He doesn't deserve.
But that's why I find it interesting that the Patriots have said, no, we're not zero tolerance about everything. We're only zero tolerance about this. I find that interesting. And I wonder what the ramifications would be if every team in the NFL were to establish this policy. Because Goodell probably would like every team in the NFL to establish this policy. If this policy existed, if it existed 5 years ago, Roger Goodell would not find himself in the circumstance he finds himself in now, where his credibility has been shredded and people think of him, instead of an iron-fisted hero, as a little bit of a buffoon. That all happened because Nobody was as moral about this as the Patriots are.
Can Roger Goodell, can the league make it a league-wide policy, or is that handled team by team?
No, you can't. No, because then you get the players' union involved. That's what I'm saying. The idea, that's why I find all of this interesting, that this is where they say that the line is, and of course they can do that. They can make the lines wherever they want, because they just signed a guy named Guy. So Patriots are going to win a game with a guy. It doesn't matter who they put in their uniform.
Right.
What are some other names that they should have in their uniforms that represent? Is there anyone better? Obviously, White is good as their running back.
Yeah.
But because I think now Belichick's bleeping with us. He said, look, I know this guy's not any good, but his name's Guy. And I want to put Guy on the back of a uniform. And I want to have him run down the field and score 6 touchdowns. I already did it with a stand-up comic. What are some other names in sports that would fit on the back of the Patriots uniform that would represent what they do? Go ahead. You have all of sports. We're going to have some fun with this next.
Don Batard.
Belichick is going to show off one week by simply not making a running back active. He's already doing the thing where he shows off by beating you with tiny white skill position people.
Stugotz.
They're annoying. I don't know what to tell you. They're just
How
annoying.
often do you confuse Amendola and Edelman? Oh, really? Another tiny white person? Is that Woodhead?
This is the Don Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
Mean Gene Okerlund going to join us here in 15 minutes. There was some phlegm that wanted to sneak out there at the end and get you fined, but you managed to avoid it.
All right.
So this is what we're looking for. Because Stugotz continues to be indignant about the Patriots making a stand on the punching of women.
I mean, they have Burkhead, they have James White. They don't need a running back. If it's a long-standing policy, do you need to make the announcement that you're not interested in Joe Mixon? And if everyone knows it, what's the point of making the announcement? Why are we reporting this?
Wait a minute. Was it an announcement or was it just a source? And was it a report? Was it an announcement? What kind of announcement was it?
I mean, it was sourced. It was sourced, but
That's a big difference, Stugotz.
Well, why are we sourcing and reporting? Okay, fine, I'm not mad at the Patriots. Why are we reporting and sourcing this and giving the Patriots any sort of credit for not being interested in Mixon?
Because it's interesting. Because the best running back in the draft. Here's the other element of this. The Patriots probably don't want anything that feels like that anywhere near their team right now because they're shady enough. Like, they don't need to be bringing in Greg Hardy. So
they didn't need to bring in Michael Floyd. I don't think he played in the Super Bowl. They brought him in.
I know, Stugotz, but which part of this are you having trouble with in terms of degrees? They've got a zero-tolerance policy on domestic abuse, and everything else they take on a case-by-case basis. On that one, they have a zero-tolerance policy on. Why is that so objectionable to you?
It's not. I'm just wondering why. I wonder why they don't have policies on guys who drink and drive.
Because this is where they've made their policy.
Okay.
I don't You're the best at this, man. Somebody apologizes, you want a better apology. Somebody has a moral stand, you want more moral stands. You're always there to question everybody on anything. If they had a zero tolerance policy on all bad behavior, you'd be like, why does it have to be zero tolerance? You're just there to question. You exist for someone to have to be the subject of a report that you will then turn into a grandiose announcement for no reason, even though it was just a source saying the Patriots aren't interested in Mixon.
Yeah. They just annoy me, man.
Okay, now we're getting at the roots of it. You're a Jets fan.
Yeah.
Now we're getting at the roots of what's happening here.
Yeah.
You should be happy they're not taking Mixon. That means the Jets might get him.
And the Jets aren't taking Mixon, man. They wasted money on Matt Forte.
You love that signing.
I did, yes. Remember how excited I was? We got Matt Forte. Brandon Marshall, they were recreating the Bears. I was
that old glory run of the Bears.
So Mean Gene Okerlund is going to join us in 10 minutes, but let's just do this here. Because the Patriots are bleeping with us, because they got a black running back named White, because they have now signed a guy named Guy. It's going to just say on the back of their uniform, Guy. It really should say that for all but 2 of their players, right? It should be Brady, Gronk, and 20 guys. Brady, Gronk, 20 guys, and you can make the kicker Gajkowski. So what are some other names? Give us some names from sports that people have given us that would be good in a Patriots uniform that would show what it is that they do philosophically.
Gary Player.
Yeah, player. Player would be cool on the back of the uniform. What else you got?
I got Richie Incognito.
That's also very good.
I got Lucky Whitehead. And I got Chuck Person.
Oh, Chuck Person. Nice. Mike, sometimes the ones here that are no good are better than the ones that are good. Like, people who are bad at this game might be better at this game. So, like, some guy just writes in, Cracker! I know, but it's also funny. Bob, bend the rules. What do you mean? Why does that get a ding? Why does Bob bend the rules get a ding?
Would that fit on the back of a jersey?
And then there's this guy who just writes in Dingleberry. Like, I mean, what's the matter with you guys? Gene Okerlund next.
Dan Le Batard.
Yo, chicken time.
Stugotz.
Smarter Gob.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Mean Gene Okerlund going to join us in just a second here on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Choose Shell V-Power Nitro Plus Premium Gasoline for the best total engine protection you can get. Here's your SportsCenter update. With their 4-1 loss to the Carolina Hurricanes, the Red Wings have been mathematically eliminated from playoff contention. It will be the first time in 25 years that the Red Wings have missed the playoffs, ending the longest active streak in professional sports. Meanwhile, in the Western Conference, with their 2-1 win versus the LA Kings, the Edmonton Oilers have clinched a playoff spot for the first time in 10 seasons, which was tied for the longest postseason drought in NHL history. And finally, a man missing since Sunday in Indonesia has been found dead inside the belly of a 23-foot-long python. The man was swallowed whole, and there is dramatic video online of villagers cutting open the snake to reveal the surprisingly well-preserved dead body. For all the latest headlines and information, tune in the SportsCenter on ESPN Radio all throughout the day.
This guy's one of my favorites. You know he's into the drink early this morning. He is the Hall of Famer, Eugene Arthur Okerlund, otherwise known as Mean Gene, greatest wrestling announcer of all time. Eat that, Gordon Soley. The greatest of all time.
That's it, boys, except I've got a little coffee today. I'm working on that early on. Not that I didn't touch it up with a little Irish concoction.
I know you did. Who were the guys in your heyday, the wrestlers that you did not dare to try to outdrink? Obviously, Andre the Giant, top of the list. Who else is on the list that Mean Gene did not dare?
Andre was far and above everybody else. The guy, I mean, he's got a reputation of consuming a couple of cases of beer in a 1-hour car trip. Also, back in the old days, Hulk could touch up a beer or two. The Macho Man Randy Savage, not too bad. A good friend of mine, Pat Patterson, who resides, by the way, in Fort Lauderdale, wasn't above having a martini or two, but for the most part, the boys were pretty good, including the nature boy, Ric Flair, at tossing them down.
Charles Mann.
The Hall of Famer, Mean Gene Okerlund, with us on ESPN Radio. Didn't you wrestle once with Hulk Hogan?
I did. I lost a bet and was forced into a match, but I didn't get too involved in it, just the finish, and that was about it. Never again, gentlemen. It was a strain on the entire system.
Well,
the training, my God, raw eggs and push-ups and stuff that's not my bag.
How did the match end though? Like, what happened? What?
Hulk Hogan threw me over the top rope. I pinned Mr. Fuji, George the Animal Steel on top, and Hulk came in for the final foursome. It looked like something out of a kind of a nutty back room.
Yes.
Someplace. Except these were all guys.
George Blanda?
George Blanda.
Were you? You're not
There's
supposed
a name out of the past.
You're not supposed to pay attention to what we're doing there. We're doing that outside of you. Were you the best man at the Iron Sheik's wedding? The Iron Sheik made you his best man?
That is absolutely correct. He married a nice little Norwegian girl from Minneapolis, and I happened to be there, and Sheik needed somebody to kind of fill in, so I did it, and it was a great wedding, and it certainly lasted a long time. As a matter of fact, they've been divorced once, and so all is well.
Did you make the speech? You made the best man speech at the Iron Sheik's wedding?
That was at the little soiree we had the night before. Of course, the Sheik by that time was totally gone. He's got this gimmick that he smokes. I don't know what the hell was in there.
Crack. It's crack. He smokes crack. Everybody tells us that. Everyone who's ever been on the show tells us that the Iron Sheik is always smoking crack.
Well, he couldn't possibly do that and withstand what he's withstood.
Okay.
Gregor Blanco?
Mean Gene Okerlund with us on ESPN Radio. Tell me more about this wedding, though, because the Iron Sheik's crazy, right?
Iron Sheik is certifiably nuts. And I traveled for quite a few years with him. He said that I reminded him of an old world Jew, which I didn't quite know how to read since I'm a Swede and a Lutheran. But nonetheless, he was a very colorful individual. By the way, you should know that he was indeed a great amateur wrestler for Iran. He was in 1968 Mexico City for the Olympics back then, and he never returned because he was part of the Shah's Republic Guards. If he went back, the whole family got wiped out.
Arthur, fill in the blank.
Hall of Fame announcer Mean Gene Okerlund with us on ESPN Radio. Who is one guy you most enjoyed interviewing? The one guy. You got to pick one, Mean Gene. It can't be 10 guys. Give me one guy that you're like, I know this is going to be magic because this guy's so good at this.
Well, the one guy that I truly enjoyed working with behind a microphone and a camera had to be Bobby the Brain Heenan. He was a masterful manager. He was a great performer, by the way, in the ring. And he was very articulate. He thought about everything. People love to hate this guy. You know that. And I'd have to say he was probably the most colorful or interesting guy that I ever interviewed in the business.
Justin Bohr?
Did you have anyone you didn't like interviewing? That like Snuka could be difficult. Anyone that you didn't like interviewing?
Well, the British Empire champion was a bit of a butthole, Billy Robinson, and he was cynical, sarcastic, and he was not fun to be around. I didn't enjoy interviewing him in particular.
So he's a bit of a butthole, not a total butthole, just a bit of a butthole, and he was a bad person. Is that what was happening?
Right. Are we not going to hit the bell, boys?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Excuse me. Hold on a second.
Pale Sayers?
There it is. There's the bell. You were so good at this, Mean Gene. Mean Gene Okerlund with us on ESPN Radio. He's just delightful every time he's on with us. Give me the time that you got physically injured. Have you ever been physically actually hurt by something stray, accidental that happened?
Well, it was accidental, and it happened up in Hartford, Connecticut at the Survivor Series. They had this gigantic egg that was going to come out for the Survivor Series right around Thanksgiving, and we were expecting Playmate of the Month or somebody real exciting. But the character that came out of this egg when it did crack at the event was the gobbledygooker. I don't know if you recall the gobbledygooker. In real life, Hector Guerrero, the brother of Eddie Guerrero and Chavo Guerrero. But he came out, and all of a sudden, the booze and the garbage, much like at the NWO outcoming in Daytona, started flying toward us, and Vince said, "Bail us out of this, Mean Gene." Piper ran. He wouldn't have anything to do with it.
That coward.
So I got up in the ring and did crisscrosses with the gobbledygooker and hooked my foot in a ring rope and fell flat on my face. and I bruised 3 or 4 ribs. Very painful.
Built Caucasian.
Do you have a story in your past where you look at a guy and you're like, this guy's act stinks? I don't like this guy's shtick. Is it Doink the Clown or is it someone else? A wrestler where you're like, I'll try to make this work because I'm a professional, but what is this? This gimmick stinks.
Well, Doink the Clown would be a pretty good example there, guys. I don't know where you pulled that one out of.
Yeah.
But I think probably one of the guys that I just had a problem putting over back in the old days was Nikolai Volkov. Number one, the guy's a commie. He hung with the Sheik and dropped so many bombs that it just was impossible to conduct business with the guy on microphone.
All right, very good.
White Howard?
Do you agree with Ric Flair that The Undertaker is the best name in the history of wrestling for a wrestler? Yes or no, according to the Hall of Famer Mean Gene Okerlund?
I would have to say yeah. Yeah, because, I mean, in terms of longevity, my God, he's going to outlive us all.
But the name specifically, because...
The name, The Undertaker.
You think that's better?
Since 1991 and is still a very viable force to be reckoned with within our ranks of the WWE today. He'll be at WrestleMania this year.
Edward Penis Hands?
Oh, for the love of God. You think The Undertaker is a better name than Gorilla Monsoon?
Well, totally different names there, guys. You're throwing a curve at me.
Yes, we are.
I don't want to duck you.
It's a monsoon of gorillas.
Gorilla Monsoon out of Philly was a very colorful guy. He had kayfabe on his license plate. So that tells you a little bit about the guy, but I enjoyed his company very much.
And we enjoyed yours. You're the best, buddy. Thank you for making time for us.
One final story that I had to let out.
All right, hold on
for you guys especially.
All right, go ahead.
I worked with the man that we lost this year by the name of Mr. Fuji. And Mr. Fuji's favorite and infamous hold was the 5-on-2. He took down many opponents with that hold.
That's it?
Are we on the air?
Is there any more to that story? Like, that's the story? Like, what just...
No, but I mean, your mind's got to visualize that, and apparently I'm not getting through.
Dan Le Batard.
Oh, Shlomo.
Stugotz.
Come on, Shlomo.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
Mike, who was the wrestler who told us that the Iron Sheik was smoking crack on an airplane? Was it Bob Backlund?
B. Brian Blair.
Oh, B. Brian Blair told us that. That was magical. Everything that just happened over the last 10 minutes was I wish I could do that daily. Visit my childhood for 10 minutes.
God, he's such a good guest, man.
Mean Gene Okerlund was spectacular. Here's something that's not spectacular. You tell me if I'm being the dope here as I become less and less interested with some of the silly things that we do with sports coverage. Do we really care whether Harden is better than Westbrook or Westbrook is better than Harden? Like, is that something that people care about other than Westbrook and Harden and the fan bases there? Right. Is that something that people actually care about debating when we're splitting hairs? We
are, but people still care. I still care about who wins the MVP. I do. And that's really what we're discussing here. But who's better, who deserves to win the MVP?
Do you acknowledge, though, that whatever argument anyone is making for Harden or Westbrook or LeBron, that whatever argument's being made, we're splitting hairs?
Yes, we're splitting hairs. But people like to have their opinion, and those are some of the debates that people like to have with friends and their dads and whomever.
But because we're splitting hairs, though, nobody can be right. There is no right answer to that. Somebody's going to win MVP, but there's not going to be a wrong MVP there if we're choosing from among those guys.
Oh,
The hell, there isn't a wrong answer. It's whoever loses. Because if you ain't first down, you're last. And you know this better than anybody. Do you vote for the MVP? Because if you do, you better cast your vote for Russell Westbrook. They'd be a lottery team without him.
I think the argument can be made that no matter who wins the award, the real winners are us, the fans. What a great season by both.
I don't like this character. The Angel of Nuance is just exceedingly nice, and I'm growing to hate the character because he doesn't have any opinions on anything. And
he's super lame. He's the lamest character we have. You can't honestly tell me that Russell Westbrook doesn't deserve this clearly. He's averaging a triple-double. You told me that was never going to happen. Well, guess what? I see it all the time, every night.
You say there's no wrong answers. I think there's no right... Wait, no. Right answer? I'm confusing myself.
Okay, $2.
We're all winners.
$2 here. $2. Angel of Nuance.
There's no nuance.
There's no nuance. The character needs to be killed.
Quick question. Are the Oakland Raiders for real?
Oh, leave me alone.
Because, they're not the Oakland Raiders for much longer.
Right. Okay.
So, technically they could be for real, but not for real in Oakland.
You understand what I'm saying, correct, Stugotz?
Yes, I do.
That the idea that this is meriting sports debate all over our network. Billy, bring that $2 in here right now, flapping your incredibly short arms, because you failed so badly there. I don't know what you're doing with that character. That character has yet to give me any nuance. All that character is doing is being nice to everybody.
Isn't that what it's all about, Dan?
It's not. No. The character's supposed to be the Angel of Nuance.
What good is trying your best if you're not absolutely dominating the competition, like Russell Westbrook is every night?
The only thing you can do is try your best, though, Demon.
You're a real bummer.
Weird show.
Okay, Kevin, for the grand prize of $1 million, what color is the White House?
I know this.
5 seconds.
Oh, switching to Geico could save you a bunch of money on car insurance?
Okay. Judges? That's true, Kevin. They'll allow it. Congratulations. You're a winner.
Woo! Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.